let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the GitOps Monthly. Today's topic is native OCI sources coming to an Argo CD near you. And we have two hosts today.
All right, I'm Blake, maintainer of Argo CD, Senior Solutions Architect at Akuity. Been at Akuity for pretty much the past year and a half, and was the one that brought OCI support into Argo CD, and I have with me Taylor.
So I'm Taylor. I am a software engineer at Akuity as well. I'm also one of the ORAS maintainers as part of the REST client for OCI. So if you are also someone who does REST and you do OCI things, you've probably used that. And then I'm also a former maintainer of Helm and a longtime Kubernetes community member.
All right, yeah. So before we start today's episode, I just want to bring this message. So we basically we come from Akuity, and this was a company originally founded by Jesse, Alex, and Hong, and they're the original creators of Argo CD, and subsequently they have founded the company Akuity, which is the enterprise. Well, it is a GitOps platform, so it's not just Argo CD, it's also Cargo. We also bring a lot of benefits which stretch just beyond Argo CD and Cargo in itself. And next slide. So the three components, so deploy, promote, monitor. So deploy is probably what most people know as Argo CD. And then promote is what most people know as Cargo. So basically, Akuity delivers cloud-native software delivery, AI-powered now. It's the purpose of Akuity is to help you ship software faster, more reliably, using modern GitOps practices. We have a lot of companies that trust us globally, and here I want to talk about how the Akuity platform, or in particular Argo CD, how it differs from the open source version of Argo CD, whereas Argo CD has open source Argo CD has a centralized controller which has inbound access to all the clusters which it manages. The Akuity platform works differently in the sense where agents call out to the control plane, and being able to isolate the secrets in the cluster, it can scale basically infinitely. It has auto logging. It optimizes traffic, and well, there's a whole load of benefits here with the Akuity platform, which we highly recommend that you try. But now for today's topic, which is OCI and Argo CD. So what we'll cover today is like why Argo CD, why do we want our OCI in Argo CD itself? Also, subsequently, an introduction to OCI artifacts, using OCI with Argo, and a brief demo. So yeah, let's bring it. So why bring OCI to Argo? So let's give a brief story of Argo CD. So as of today, we have two widely adopted options for content management: Git repositories and Helm repositories. They're great. There's something like these two have a slight inconsistency as compared to where the rest of the community is going. As most of you in this talk probably know, that the general trend in the Kubernetes community is to move towards OCI. OCI registries are not just container images. More and more projects has OCI as a storage mechanism and a source of truth, Helm charts, WASM modules, container signatures, SBOMs, AI ML models. But you might notice that there's a bit of a gap here. How does Argo CD fit into all of this? So we have a couple of key use cases here, which poses problems which has posed problems for various clients of ours. So these two first points are a great example. We have a lot of clients that would like to manage their edge cases, their air gap use cases, using Argo CD, using GitOps, along with their normal use cases. There are some limitations with this approach. So Examples of such environments could be a boat, it could be a plane where there's limited internet connectivity for various reasons. There are also various environments where, due to regulations or very, very stringent requirements of security, where internet access is not allowed anyway, point blank. And traditionally with Argo CD, we've had to kind of treat this differently because in a lot of these environments, there's typically no Git server present. So how does one handle deployments of artifacts? So the thing about these kind of environments is that there may not be a Git repository, but there's almost always a container registry in these environments. So the purpose of this is we can leverage what already exists for container images and do the same for artifacts. In short, with OCI, we can manage applications the same way as we would on non-edge cases. We could, in practice, in a lot of air-gapped environments, you might have to bring a USB stick. You have your images and then load them into the container registry. But in the end, like once it's in the registry, Argo CD takes over. It can then listen to whatever's in the registry and do what it normally does. So another topic is redundancy and data residency, which is kind of related, but it's not really the same. So out of the box, we get redundancy basically out of the box with OCI registries. I mean, in the Docker world, we know this as pull-through caching. So basically, you have a localized copy of a registry that can pull from, say, Docker Hub. I imagine that a lot of you have implemented something like this due to Docker Hub's limitations, where if you have in your local cluster, you have an image which you pull from your local registry. We can basically have this out of the box with OCI as well, with artifacts. So, for example, we had a customer that not too long ago, their Bitbucket was down. They couldn't sync apps. Not such a great experience. This had been OCI. They could have just pointed to the local registry, and they would have just happily been able to sync. We also have issues with various clients that, for example, they have their environments, or they have their Argo CD, say, behind the Great Firewall of China. They try to pull artifacts from a remote Git repository in, say, the United States, and latency and slowness has been a huge issue for them. And this is also something where, with pull-through caching, this is something which can be leveraged in the same way as one does with normal container images. And something to keep in mind is that in Argo CD, we do have mitigations for these kind of things. I mean, there's both the manifest cache, there's also a Git cache for this, but it doesn't fully solve for these issues. I mean, for example, if there's an extended outage and for whatever reason the repo server restart, all that's lost. So you basically want to be able to get up and running quicker in case there is in case of any kind of outages, and to be able to scale out more in a more efficient fashion. Yeah, next slide. So all in all, what does OCI bring to the table? So we already discussed this. We have interop across tooling, future-proofing. I mean, obviously the community is going towards OCI. It makes sense that Argo CD in itself is going to OCI. We have a whole load of tooling as of today, which is moving towards OCI. Now, keep in mind, this doesn't mean that GitOps is going away. Git is always going to be, I mean, we cannot call ourselves GitOps tool if we don't have Git. So be clear that this is in no means a replacement for Git in OCI, but it does become a very compelling alternative for people who want to have a consistent way of consistent tooling, a consistent way of deploying artifacts. Data residency, redundancy, we discussed this. Signing is also something which becomes very compelling. This is something which we haven't really even begun to scratch the surfaces of this in RCD. This is something where at least I would like to see some kind of native integration with, say, Sigstore to be able to, to have like if the image is if the image hasn't been signed, then we should not sync. This is something which doesn't, as of yet, today exist in RCD, but this is something I would like to see development towards. This is my personal desires, so caveat emptor. This is not something which, this is obviously something which we need to discuss about in the community, how we go about it. But at least in my opinion, it makes a ton of sense to actually have this in Argo CD. Portability and consistency. This is basically more the same thing where we have one way of handling artifacts. We have one way of dealing with tooling. We don't have one special way of dealing with tooling for Argo applications and artifacts, and another way for container images and such. Next slide. So let's talk about how OCI on Argo CD happened. So in the end, the gist of it is that back in mid 2024, we were, at least from the side of Akuity, we got a lot of requests from clients and customers about how we can best support their use cases with OCI. How do we do air gap environments? How do we do X? How do we Y? When can we get OCI into Argo CD? Ultimately, we had I wouldn't say an avalanche of requests, but we did get quite a few requests. And ultimately, we started looking into this from the Akuity side. We did a quick POC. We got the green light from Hong, our CEO, to get OCI into Argo CD. And I worked on it and basically came up with a proof of concept over a weekend. It was proof of concept is simple, but as it turns out, proof of concept is a proof of concept, and having a production quality implementation takes a bit more than a weekend. So, as they say, 80% of the way, but then the last 20% took 80% effort. Pretty principle, right there. So, but in the end of the day, and I would definitely want to give a shout out to the ORAS team, because without their implementation, it would have looked very different. And I love the ORAS guys, love the ORAS implementation. I just want to throw it out there. But ultimately, this was something which, with collaboration from community, this was a one guy effort from the Akuity side, and this wasn't a full-time effort. So that also led to where it is now. So, but after many ifs and buts, a year later, we managed to get this into Argo CD 3.1. We just narrowly missed the 3.0 window, but the good news is that within the next month, it's going to be available for everyone. Yeah, there you go. And as I would say, we didn't do this because it was easy. We did this because we thought it would be easy. It was an effort which I thought would be, how hard can it be? It turns out it was not easy. So yeah. I will discuss a bit about, so as a part of what's in Argo CD. So we have obviously the OCI client. It's ORAS, obviously, is the one that we're using. We have, in Argo CD, we have a new repository type called OCI. And this is in order to support OCI credentials and to differentiate them from Helm and Git credentials. We need a way to differentiate between this for various reasons I'm not going to go into. But in the end, from the perspective of the user, it's just like, instead of specifying a credential as type Helm or type Git, you specify type OCI. We support native OCI media types. So by default, we support tar and gzip layers, as well as Helm, the content type for Helm. We do say that media types that are custom, they need to be whitelisted in the repo server. So by default, there's only 3 enabled, but with the repo server, you set an environment variable specifying the media types which the repo server allows to be enabled. And of course, like there's no reason why we couldn't extend the default support for this in the future. At least my opinion, I think it's quite extensible and easy to work on. So biased opinion, of course, but if not, feel free to say otherwise. UI enhancements, we have ability to display OCI metadata in the UI, and and of course being able to visualize OCI, like to visualize what digest is being used and et cetera, is also part of this. Yeah, and now I'll take it from Taylor.
So, do we want to pause for I know we had a couple questions. We want to go ahead and pause for just a second and answer some of those. Angelica, do you want me to go ahead and just take some of those that are on there, or did you have a list already?
Sure, you can just go ahead and read off the Q&A.
Okay, perfect. So, we have one from Daniel about outside of these use cases, meaning like the edge and air gap ones that Blake mentioned. Does it make sense to use OCI in ordinary use cases as well? There's a follow-up to that, but I figure Blake, I'll let you answer that one. I obviously have thoughts, but you're the expert.
Yeah, no, as I say, I don't see a reason why it couldn't be used for normal use cases as well. I mean, uh, half the point would be like to have a consistent way of deploying for both like normal use cases as well as air gap use cases. In the end, I would totally recommend this, but it's really up to you. I mean, as I said, we're not going to replace Git, but I don't see a reason why OCI couldn't be used pervasively throughout Argo CD. What are your thoughts, Taylor?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of the benefits of using this in general because of all the things you mentioned before, the security stuff that comes built in, just the massive ecosystem around it. Oftentimes this fits right into compliance pipelines because they have to like scan repositories and whatever, and this fits straight in there. And so it allows you to get things in that you might not have been able to get in before. Want to get a new Git repo? That might be several layers of red tape depending on your company. Push a new push a new question, like a new like just artifact, not a problem. So like that's like one of those things to see. This is actually so I did some similar implementations of this kind of stuff in the WASM space about a year ago, and it was for the same reasons. Like just make it so everybody can use the same stuff that they already have. Um, so um, there's another question from Sebastian, and I might come back to another from Daniel. Will OCI support be added to Cargo as well? Which I think is a good question.
The spicy one, no, for sure. We've definitely discussed it, but we don't have concrete timelines. I mean, in theory, there's no reason why it couldn't be supported in Cargo. I think we just have to. I mean, I don't think the step would be huge to support at least deploying this natively in with Argo CD. But just watch this space. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and it's you probably could get it to work if you try it. It's just we haven't done all the testing and integration yet on that. So just your mileage may vary at this current moment, but it won't be that way for long. And then there was another question from Karsten that I did see come in around is the idea to be able to pack up a Git repo as an artifact and store it in an OCI repo. I can answer that one. Actually, I'm going to cover that in this next section a little bit, but yes, you can. If you want to, you could pack up an entire Git repository. There's also other ways you can do it, and that's the nice thing here is its flexibility. You define what goes into it, and we'll talk about all like the requirements for what that format actually is, which is not really that difficult. So we'll cover that in just a second here. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and dive into that. If people have questions, please keep sending them. Did I miss anything, Angelica?
That was the last question.
Okay, awesome. So let's dive in a little bit to OCI artifacts. This is why I was really excited to give this particular webinar because it's sitting at an interesting intersection of technologies. So let's talk about it. So what's OCI and what's artifacts? The things I'm assuming that most people who are coming here have at least used Docker and probably are using things like OCI every day, even if you don't know what it is. But I also assume there's probably plenty of people who know what it is. But just to level set, we have just a couple little introductions here. The first thing is that OCI is Open Container Initiative. So it's an open governance thing. I believe it's under the Linux Foundation, or if it's not that, it's in CNCF, but I'm pretty sure it's under Linux Foundation. And it's meant to be the standard around the different formatting and runtime things for containers. And one of those things is the OCI distribution specification, which is what we're leveraging here. And that is what defines what these images look like, how they're stored, how you can access them. And over the past few years, OCI has built up support for basically arbitrary types, which we call artifacts. And you can store and serve things that are other than container images. And that's what has been going on for a while. If you've used Helm for any significant amount of time, I remember when we added the OCI feature there, that was kind of one of the first use cases that people had of pushing just something that wasn't a container, but container adjacent in that case for artifacts. And so the type of an artifact is determined by two different things. The older format used the media type, and with the latest specification, which is 1.1, they added the artifact type field. And so you have to, the only disadvantage right now is this is still being rolled out. There's some registries that don't support it. Like Docker Hub can sometimes and sometimes not support certain types of these. And it just depends on your registry, but a good chunk of them that you're likely using, I think most of the cloud registries from the big cloud providers that I've used support it. They do require explicit support from each of the registry implementations to know that they can support artifacts, and also for the clients that are pulling them. For example, I know as the Rust client maintainer that we don't have support for the artifact type one yet. We just have the config.media type one because 1.1 came out and we just need to do the effort to implement all the 1.1 spec. So just be aware that it's still evolving, but it's really heavily used across the industry. Blake already listed all the different industries it's used across. And so it's a very powerful tool that lets us leverage all the benefits of OCI without having to be a container. So what's an OCI artifact? It's actually dumber than you'd think it'd be. People like go, oh man, like I remember when I first looked at OCI, I'm like, oh man, I don't want to have to understand all that. You're trying to read through the spec. It actually just boils down to pretty much these 23 lines of JSON. So if you're ever curious, this is what a manifest looks like for OCI. So there's a couple key things to know about. The manifest is the main thing. When you say like pull like Debian latest, what you're getting first when you pull is this manifest. And this manifest describes what the media type is. Almost everything you're going to get is a media type of application VND OCI image manifest. Okay, that's a specific MIME type that we use for container manifests. Then you have the artifact type. The artifact type in the latest version of the spec is what says, this is my type I'm going to use. In this case, this is the example type that they use. But in our case, we have tarballs, which I'll talk about in a second. Config lets you specify additional config for the thing that's going on. So for what we use in Argo, we don't need the config type. We just use what's the standardized empty config type. It's just, open close bracket, and that's it. If you've been in OCI long enough, you actually kind of know this SHA by memory. So if that tells you anything. But then you have the layers, and those layers describe each of the content. Those are blobs. And you have the annotations that Blake mentioned that give you there's a standard set of them that are under that org.opencontainers namespace that give a rich set of metadata for UIs to consume, and you can see that inside of the Argo UI when we do those things. So that's all that an OCI artifact is we're just, instead of pushing a container file system at this layer, we push a tarball with the content inside of it. So what are those supported media types? I'm going to go over these again because I think it's important if you're going to go dive in and try this out, especially as soon as the feature comes out. We have obviously support for OCI images and the Helm charts that are in there, but we also support generic tarballs. Okay, so any of the tarball types, basically if it ends with that gzip or tar type, we're able to take it and then decompress it. So Argo CD will take it when it sees this manifest. It'll see the artifact type that we've specified. It should say, application, and then it'll have whatever your tar gzip. And then when it sees that, it decompresses, pulls it out, and sends it to and puts it in the right location for the repo server to know what it's looking at. So it's going to take care of everything. And as far as Argo is concerned, it's just basically dealing with any other files that would have cloned before or pulled from like a Helm chart. So pretty straightforward. The big point in the red, which is why we have it in red there, is that you can provide additional media types that you allow it to do. It does have to be a compressed media type right now. Obviously, that's something we can improve in the Argo project as things move forward. I was talking, as Blake and I were working on this, I was talking about what if you could just like, specify a single YAML file that just has all your YAML manifests in a list there. Like, what if you do that? So you could have application YAML as your manifest type and don't need to compress. So there's a whole bunch of things we can go down that line with, but if you need to add an additional type for it to support, there is an environment variable that lets you add those overrides. So what does a typical OCI workflow look like? This is where we get into the meat of it. This is where everything kind of joins together. So that's the OCI side of things, but how do we use it? So it basically breaks down to 3 steps. The first thing is you have to arrange and organize your files, and this is getting to Carson's question that they were asking earlier. And then you have publishing the artifact and configuring Argo CD with the ability to fetch that artifact. So the arrange and organize step, just to call it out again, I'm trying to repeat these multiple times so people don't get like hit by something when they first try to jump in and do it. But Argo CD expects a single content layer. You have any additional layers, Blake, does that error? I can't remember if that errors or not if you have more than one layer, but no matter what, it'll always take
It does.
it does okay, it does
Yeah.
error. Yeah. So you need one layer at index 0. And so that's the thing that you'll have. So what you do is you get to organize the content however you'd like. You want to gzip up a whole repo? Perfect. You want to take your repo. So, I mean, oftentimes when you do these kind of steps, you have something that takes your manifests and then does like a hydration step, right? Like whether it's the like a customized Helm hydration or just a customized apply on things and apply all your customizations to it. Whatever it is, you generally have your initial manifest and then you have your generated manifests. Those generated manifests you could have in your pipeline. You could have something that takes those manifests, generates them, and then gzips those manifests. So it's very flexible in how you want to do it. All you have to do is then compress it to a tarball and then push the artifact. And Blake will actually show in his demo like what this looks like pushing an artifact. It's really, really simple. But we'll talk about that, which is publishing it. Now, I did this dumb meme because there weren't enough to get to all 10 options in choosing your fighter, but there were plenty. So there are lots of clients that let you do this. I'm obviously partial to ORAS because I'm one of the maintainers. I also find it the most simple and easy to use. You also have Podman and Scopio, and I'm sure there's others I missed, but those are the biggest ones I know of that have artifact support that lets you push them. So you need to pick a client tool to be able to push it. We don't care what it is because we just consume the artifacts inside of Argo. So what you'll do is you'll create those things and then you'll publish and apply the desired media type that you want for it. So by default, a lot of these clients will infer it from the tarball extension. So you don't even have to specify it, but if you want to specify a specific media type, you can. And you can also add annotations. Now, just as someone who's been in the OCI ecosystem a long time, I personally would highly recommend always setting in annotations. You're not required to do so for this to work, but you can set things like authors, descriptions, commits. Like there's a whole list of these things that you can put in there. Highly recommend setting those because it just provides very useful information on the end user side, even if that end user is yourself. It just captures a lot of context. Now, after you publish, you have to configure Argo CD. Now, Blake mentioned there's a new credential type. You'll have to use the repository. Now, the repository can technically use HTTP, but just based on even the specification, how clients work, like HTTP without encryption requires like a specific flag that says this is going to be insecure. We have full support for all the authentication methods, like you have custom certificates. You have generally your token auth, which is what a lot of people use. And each artifact you're going to pull from the thing requires you to define it explicitly. That's still correct, right, Blake? That all of those things are you have to explicitly tie it to an artifact, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Now, obviously, this can evolve. We're just letting you know what it is right now. Now, when you define your application, it's going to look basically the same, which is really nice. So you define your application, and then you go through and you say, here's my repo URL, and here's the target revision. And your path is just the current path because you're going to untar it. So the main thing with a revision is you can use an image tag, but to maintain the process of how GitOps works, right? One of the reasons we like GitOps is you can say, I am at this commit SHA, right? You have a specific identity for it. That's a very powerful tool inside of GitOps. And so we highly recommend that even though we do support image tags, that you're using fully qualified SHAs. You'll see this as well when we push the artifacts, but your image manifest has a SHA. And that SHA is its identity as well. You can do, if you haven't done it before, you can do things with any image or anything in OCI. You could do like a Docker pull, like my image, and then instead of the version tag, you have a SHA, which is just with the ampersand. So we'll show you what that looks like, but using the SHA is the better thing to do that digest of the image so that you can make sure you're getting the exact thing because tags are mutable, digests are not. So just keep that in mind. So now we're going to go back and I'm going to stop sharing the slides and Blake's just going to go straight into like demos and showing how this all works. So we'll go ahead and do that.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. I'll just be warned, I don't think you'll be mind blown, but I will show you the basics of. Do you see my screen? Am I showing? Do you see
Yep.
a terminal? Okay.
Yep, we're good. We see the Docker Hub and your terminal.
Okay, cool. So, and hopefully you guys see the text. So I'm just going to show ORAS push. Easy peasy. It's pretty much just like pushing. It works, okay. It's so we push. Actually, let me remove that. So we've uploaded the OCI artifact. Just to be clear, what's here is nothing in particular. It's just a guestbook. It's if you've used the Argo CD example of guestbook, it's the stereotypical example. There's literally nothing mind-blowing there. So empty Docker registry. Push this to latest, and as Taylor mentioned, we get a SHA here, and this is what we're going to use. So let's actually took this. Let me delete this because I was trying this out. So anyway, let's just do this. Let's just hope there's no demo. And I would have done this. This can also be done for manifest, obviously, but demo revision. Let's take the SHA there and then just take the path, which is dots. There we go. Keep in mind this. Oh, I did it. There we go. Bam. Okay. Error else. Okay, I don't know why it's doing that, but let's do a refresh. Let's sync this. But okay. Of course, demo. Right, because I forgot to add the create guestbook annotation. No worries. No big deal. Where did we add the where's the auto create namespace? Sorry about that.
This is why we like doing demos live. Proofs to people we're not canning these. These are real things. And
Yep.
and as we all know, you have to make the appropriate sacrifices to the demo gods, as anyone who has given a demo knows.
Exactly. There we go. Okay. Yeah, well, okay, I'm not sure why this was syncing. But all in all, to say that this is syncing directly from the remote OCI repo. We have yeah, okay, well, all right, the pod is sad because it's the wrong image. The point is, as we say to the demo gods, it's not so much that we at least can prove that we're syncing artifacts with OCI, then the fact that the pod is broken is no story. Nothing that we cannot fix, but nonetheless, in the sync status, we can, no, sorry, it's in the, where is that? And we don't actually have any metadata in this one. Actually, let me show a better one. So did this with, so here's an example of Prometheus. We get actual, where did that actually go? Oh yeah, right here. Okay, why isn't that? Because we're supposed to get metadata here from, literally had this before the demo was working. Yeah, here. So last sync. So OCI metadata. So we can see that with that Rocon's maintainer Prometheus. This is from the remote OCI repo that was pushed. OCI description. So we populate the app with OCI metadata to see. We have in this case we have a revision here, target revision, which gets resolved to a which gets resolved to a specific SHA, which we can see here. It's so something to keep in mind is that we can also support semver ranges. Again, like if possible, the same as with Git, you definitely should use concrete SHAs, concrete digests, but for convenience's sakes, we do support image tags, and as well as semver ranges. So something to keep in mind is that for private repositories, we have a new OCI type with a little OCI image there. So basically, if you want to use OCI, this is where you specify OCI type credentials. And this, keep in mind, this can be done in the command line as well. I just wanted something a bit more visual to display than doing this in command line. But in the end, like it works the same way as any repository credential in Argo CD. You have either a full repository or you have a repository prefix in the case of credentials templates. And as anything else, you can scope them to per project. This is the same as any real artifact in that sense. I don't know if there are any questions because there's honestly, I mean, it seems a bit, it seems like there's not much to show, but there is actually this is actually the culmination of a lot of work, so I would say. So this is also something where anyone who's used Argo CD is not going to be like mind blown over this, but the point is that this is here now. Well, it will be available very soon, and it's basically where we're at now. I don't know if you have any questions in regards.
Blake, I know that we had the question earlier about like the layout and how everything looks. Do you want to show like because I know you pushed the artifact real quick. Do you want to show what that like layout is inside of the directory of what you pushed, just so people can kind of see?
Yeah, I mean, in this case, the layout is literally two YAML files. It's literally uh, it's literally nothing apart from two. It can be, of course, Helm charts. It can be a full. I mean, if you want to put your whole Git repo in an OCI image, there's nothing stopping you. There's uh, one thing which you could do as well as package up a whole image or package up a whole directory with subdirectories if you want. Let's see. I mean, for example, we could pack up this whole thing and store it as an OCI image if we really want to. Um, okay, where's not? But in the end, it's like the thing with OCI is it's extremely flexible and it's extremely like it's really up to you how you would want to define uh, your image layout. It's really up to you.
Awesome. Okay, well,
So
we have a question. I'll read it out. So it says, unlike Git source, where Argo can sync any new changes pushed to the branch, we'll have to update the app for any new changes. Any suggestions on how, except cargo, of course?
uh, when did this? Wait, I don't see that question.
It's in the Q&A.
Uh-huh. Okay. I mean, in the end, like cargo is one way. I mean, if you have a semver range, so for example, if you're dealing in semver, you can do something like this, where instead of setting a concrete target revision, you can do something which, again, you probably would ideally you probably would want a concrete range, but like a concrete shop, but you can set a semver version, and then it would every couple of minutes the repo server will check for the remote OCI repo and see if there's newer image than what's available, and then it would then pull this. So that would be the canonical way of doing this in an OCI world. If since as Taylor mentioned, I mean, if you use a tag and it's the same tag and it's mutable, Argo's not going to pick that up unless if there's a semver specified.
Okay.
We
have
have
another
two
one.
questions in the chat too.
Yep. I'll grab, I think the one from Kanika was the one in first. It says, what is the difference between pushing a Helm chart to an OCI registry and pushing it to a package registry? I can answer that one. So there's obviously some nuance here, but they're basically the same thing. A package registry is generally an OCI registry. Now, like we said, there's some OCI registries that don't implement the like artifacts standard. but those have become less and less over the years because it is now part of the standard. Before it was just kind of a hack around the thing. You use the config media type, and it was just agreed upon, but now it's actually inside the specification. So as long as like you're if you're talking something like, let's use like JFrog. Like JFrog has support for like normal traditional artifact like downloads, but it also has support for OCI. So as long as you're pushing it to the OCI registry part of it, aka the package registry, then you're fine. It's the same thing. So you'd be able to pull from that. And then we had another one from Sylvain about can you provide some of the differences on the efficiency for sync between Git and OCI, if any? Please, like load on the controller, time, etc.
I think I'm going to hate being that guy, but I would say it really depends. I mean, if you're having if you have a small image that doesn't really have anything versus, you know, I could see people like, bringing out big images that are like a gigabyte or more in size, and then caveat emptor, it really varies. I would say like in general, I would say that there's not a huge significant amount of difference. I mean, I think the performance characteristic it would be more akin to what happens with the existing Helm implementation, where it goes and fetches a tarball from the Helm registry. It's I would say the similarities aren't really that similar in terms of Git, but I don't see that there's going to be a huge difference in terms of efficiency or load as such. But it's so domain specific, so it's hard to give a satisfactory answer on that. Okay, show the creation of doors. So I'll just say that this is something which happens transparently from ORAS. Let me see if I can get the yeah. So from two. So one thing is that when you do an ORAS push, the manifest gets generated transparently. This is something which let me see if I have this.
Do you want to share again, Blake? Is that what you're gonna do? I can go ahead and stop sharing again.
Yeah, I can. Let's see. It's ORAS manifest. I don't have that in my history. I forgot what the command is to fetch the manifest, but fetch, and then of course this remote registry, which is.
Do you want to do you have that up, Blake, so people can see?
Oh, I missed. Sorry. ORAS fetch, and then we need a remote repository of this. Wait a sec. Okay, let's see if this works. I'm actually not sure off the top of my head, but you can fetch the.
Yeah, you'll need the tagger digest. It'll be fine.
Let's see if this works. Ooh. Oh, okay, yeah.
I think you have to do the fully qualified. Yeah.
What's that demo? Wow, come on. That's
You had the dot on the end.
got it. There we go. Not very fast, this one.
Well, that's hopefully fetching. To answer the other part of that question, like the way that this
There we
is
go.
being done, like if you have two YAML files, those YAML files are compressed into a tarball, and so it does. Do you still have the logs in your terminal from the when you pushed it?
Yeah.
You'll see it pushing the that's why I actually really like ORAS because it tells you explicitly what it's doing. So it pushes the manifest, it pushes the config, which is just an empty type, and then it pushes the blobs that it's specified in the manifest. So you've compressed it down to a single tarball. The tarball gets pushed to the OCI registry as the blob after the manifest is pushed to show like so that the registry has like the complete graph of everything that's supposed to be there.
Okay, I'm just gonna. There we go. So, in summary, this is the manifest that gets generated, and something to keep in mind is that with ORAS, this is something where you can add exactly. ORAS does the magic. That's exactly right. And there are a lot of I will say that there are a lot of implementations out there. I have by far found ORAS the easiest to use, but I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't do this with, say, Skopje or Podman or what have you. But my personal preference, both as a library and as a CLI tool, has been ORAS by a mile.
So we have um, so there was another question, just so it doesn't get lost in there. Are there plans to support more flexible revision discovery, kind of like Flex CD image update automation?
Uh, could you expand on that?
That's what I have in the question. So,
Yeah, I'm the one
yeah,
who.
Yevgeny, if you could expand a little bit more on that question, that'd be great. So we can maybe answer it with some clarity. And while we're waiting for that, I'm just gonna bring this up. So this repository is a good place with a bunch of Argo CD examples for the OCI stuff. I just wanted to have that around there. If you're, it's a like I said, just a good resource. So just putting that up there so people have reference to it while we wait for a little bit more feedback. Any other questions as well before we go ahead and wrap up here?
Yeah. So Evany, this was what I was talking about. This is already available with semver ranges. So with semver filters, you could already do something like filtering, but regex style lookups will. I don't see any current plans of supporting this. I mean, this is in general for Argo CD in general, because one thing we do not want to do is diverge too much from how Helm or Git does this. And in short, since that doesn't exist, and I don't see this existing anytime soon for those sources, I don't anticipate that this would happen for OCI either. So basically explicit tags, explicit digests, or semver ranges would be the way to go. But I don't. Cargo for sure has already has more flexible ways of doing this, but that in the end would write. I mean, in the end, the cargo would write out a concrete digest into the Argo CD app. So, but in Argo CD itself, I don't see that happening. Sorry, joined late. Do you have an example of application sets for OCI charts? No, I do not. But there's no reason. I mean, I don't see a reason why it wouldn't work. I mean, there is no reason why it wouldn't work. So and this is in fact something where I would consider that the use case becomes more compelling, because you would template out the registry host. So especially for the data residency part, which I was talking about, where with an application set, let's say you have the cluster generator, you could then template out the registry host so that it's only like using let's say you have a localized ECR, for example. You would then template out the ECR so that it's in the correct region, and from there you would ensure that it would only pull images in that region. I think that's application sets and OCI would make for a very compelling use case. But I don't have anything concrete specifically about it. But it's something I can definitely whip up out of after this chat.
So thank you everyone for attending. If you are interested in seeing any of the stuff we talked about at the beginning as well, with what we do at Akuity with making Argo and distributing large clusters pretty easy and seamless, I'd love to hear from you. Just let us know. And we really appreciate all the attendance and the great questions today. We're going to be continuing this. This is we're scheduling mostly on a monthly basis, right, Angelica, for the next few sessions, and then a couple extras that might be in there a couple times.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll be putting out the next one relatively soon. I think I might be actually involved with that one too. So hopefully I didn't bore you too much, because you'll see my face again. And but yeah, let us know if you have any other questions through our various social media channels, or on Slack, wherever you want to reach us. I think Blake and I are both on the CNCF Slack, right, Blake? Don't want to put words in your mouth. I know both. I know that I am. So you can feel free to reach out to us there as well, or anywhere in the Argo channels, because we're regular haunts. So,
Yeah.
anything else you wanted to leave with, Blake?
No, I'd say pretty much what you said. So we're on the Argo CD channel. There's an Argo CD OCI integration channel for that matter, but I think that will be subsumed into the normal Argo CD channel once we get this out. Also on the ORAS channel as well. So wherever we're around, so feel free to ask questions, and feel free to, if anything, feature requests for any kind of improvements, enhancements, praise, the opposites, you know where to find us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. And join us again in a month for our next episode of GitOps Monthly.